Beanie held her breath, pressed flat against the cool hardwood floor beneath the enormous mahogany bed, barely stifling a laugh. The white wedding dress, which she still hadn't changed out of since the ceremony, billowed around her like a cloud, the veil tangled in the box, springs above her head. If Omari sees me like this, looking like a tiny angel climbing out from under the bed, he's going to have a heart attack, she thought, picturing her new husband walking into the room. He'd search every corner, calling out worriedly until she burst out yelling, "Surprise!" And they'd laugh until they cried, just like in the old days. Back then, Omari was different, fun, carefree, with bright eyes and a contagious laugh. He used to show up under her window at midnight with an acoustic guitar, singing the blues until the neighbors started yelling and threatening to call the police. She would dash out in her pajamas and fuzzy bunny slippers, and they'd run off, giggling like teenagers, even though they were both well over 30. The door creaked open, but instead of her husband's familiar footsteps, Beanie heard the distinctive clack of her mother-in-law's heels. Zola swept into the room with that air of authority she always carried, as if this were her territory, her domain, where she was the absolute queen. "Yes, Shanice, I'm home now," she said into her phone, settling down precisely on the edge of the bed Beanie was hiding under. The springs groaned, forcing the bride to flatten herself even further against the floor. No way. The girl turned out to be very docile. Too much so, I'd say. Omari says she's practically an orphan, that her daddy is some nickel-and-dime engineer at a plant, barely scraping by. I went personally to see her place, a hovel, in some run-down building out in Decatur. A shame, truly. But now my Omari has leverage. Beanie felt her blood run cold, docile, orphan. Her father was an engineer, yes, but not just any kind. He was the head of design at Kinetic Designs, LLC, a defense industry firm, a modest man who never boasted about his position. The apartment in that old building actually belonged to her late Aunt Clara, and her father kept it for sentimental reasons, because he'd grown up there. In reality, they lived in a spacious 3-bedroom condo in the affluent Buckhead neighborhood. Beanie simply hadn't felt the need to flaunt any of that to her future mother-in-law. You understand, Shanice? The plan is simple, Zola continued. Beanie heard the telltale click of a lighter. Omari had sworn to her that his mother had quit smoking 10 years ago. They'll live together for 6 months, a year at most. Then Omari starts saying they're not compatible. I'll play my part. I'll say the daughter-in-law doesn't respect me, talks back, can't cook, the house is a mess. You know, the usual routine. They'll get an amicable separation, and the condo, which is in her name now, of course, will claim it in court. Omari put up the money. We have all the receipts saved. Besides, the girl won't put up a fight. What can a girl from the country do against us? Omari and I have it all mapped out. Zola's phone rang again. Hello? Omari? Yes, son. I'm in your room. No, your brand new wife isn't around. She's probably out celebrating with her friends. Don't worry. She can't escape now. She's got the ring on her finger, the seal on the certificate. Done deal. Bird in a cage. Just remember what we talked about. No weakness. From day one, she needs to understand who runs this house. And don't you dare give in to her little tears or tantrums. They're all the same. You give them an inch, and they take a mile. Drive safe, son. I'll stay a little longer. I'm going to smoke a cigarette. I'll open the window so the smoke doesn't stink up the place. Wouldn't want your little wife to start complaining. Beanie lay beneath the bed, feeling the world crumble around her. She was trembling, not from the cold, but from betrayal, rage, and disgust. The man she had entrusted her life to was a fraud, an accomplice in his mother's scheme to rob her, and the signs had always been there. She remembered how Omari insisted the condo be put solely in her name. Baby, it's easier with the paperwork, and you'll feel more secure. It's yours, he'd said, kissing her forehead. And she, the fool, had believed him. She also recalled Zola's probing questions about her family. And your mother? You don't have anyone else left? Oh, what a tragedy, the poor little girl. Those looks, which Abini had mistaken for tenderness, were actually pure calculation, the cold instinct of a hunter sizing up her prey. Zola stood up from the bed, paced the room, and stopped in front of the mirror. "Don't worry, Shanice. Patience. I put up with my late husband for 30 years until he finally kicked the bucket. And now, the house, the properties, and the accounts are mine. He thought I was some country bumpkin only fit for making soup. Let this one believe it, too. All the better. Well, darling, I'll let you go. I'll call you tomorrow and tell you how the lovebirds' first night went. If they even find each other, that is." She let out a nasty little laugh and left the room. The beanie remained motionless for a long time, afraid to move. Then slowly she crawled out, sat on the floor, and hugged her knees. The dress was covered in dust, the veil ripped, but none of that mattered. The important thing was deciding what to do. Her first impulse was to grab her things and leave immediately in her wedding dress in the middle of the night. But something new awakened in her, a cold determination. "No, sweethearts, you messed with the wrong one," she murmured, getting up. In her wedding purse was her cell phone. Abini quickly opened the voice recorder app. Luckily, she had managed to start recording when she heard her mother-in-law's footsteps, initially wanting to capture Omari's reaction to her joke. Now she had an ace up her sleeve, but one wasn't enough. She needed the whole deck. She quickly changed into a pair of jeans and a sweater, packed the dress away in the closet, and sat down at her laptop. Omari wouldn't be back for a while, and she planned to use the time well. The first call was to her father, Kamau. Despite the late hour, he answered immediately. "Princess, why aren't you sleeping? It's your wedding night and you're calling me," he said with a mixture of affection and worry. "Daddy, I need to talk, seriously. Do you remember offering to put your share of the company in my name?" There were a few seconds of silence. "Abini? What happened? Did that idiot do something to you?" "Daddy, nothing has happened yet, but I need a guarantee. Can you come to the notary first thing tomorrow morning?" "Of course, baby girl. And we'll transfer your Aunt Clara's condo into your name, too. I already have the paperwork ready." "Thank you, Daddy. I'll explain everything later." "No need. The minute I met that Omari, I knew he was an opportunist. And his mother? Forget about it, but you wouldn't listen to me. You were in love." "I wasn't, Daddy. I wasn't." The next call was to Sela, her best friend and lawyer. "Sela, I'm sorry to call you so late. I need a consultation. If a condo is in my name and I bought it before the wedding, does my husband have any right to it?" "Abini, what's going on? Are you already thinking about divorce?" "The wedding was today." "Sela, just answer. If I bought it before the wedding and it's only in my name, it's separate property. He could only claim something if he could prove he invested money in renovations or improvements. Why are you asking? I'll explain tomorrow. Can you stop by my place around 10? Of course, girl. Hold tight." The door slammed shut. Omari was back. "Abini, where are you?" "Baby girl, I drove halfway across the city looking for you," he said in a worried voice, though she could now hear the falseness behind it. Abini walked down the stairs, trying to appear calm. "Hi, my love. I was just tidying up a little, and I changed my clothes." Omari hugged and kissed her, and Abini had to make a huge effort not to pull away. "Why are you so cold? Are you freezing? I'm just tired. Let's go to sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a heavy day." "Heavy? We're on vacation for 2 weeks. Yes, but the condo is new. We have to organize it. By the way, your mother was here looking for you." "My mother? What for?" Omari's voice tightened. "I don't know. I was in the shower. I just heard the door. Maybe she left a gift. They went to bed, and Omari... They went to bed, and Omari fell asleep almost instantly, breathing deep and even, his arm thrown over her waist in a way that would have melted her heart any other night. Now it just felt heavy, like a chain. Abini lay stiff beside him, staring at the dark ceiling. She could still hear Zola's voice in her head, every word like a shard of glass. "Bird in a cage." The girl won't put up a fight. Omari and I have it all mapped out." Omari murmured something in his sleep and shifted closer. She closed her eyes, forcing herself not to recoil. It took everything inside her not to shove him away, not to scream, not to shake him awake and demand answers he would only lie through. "Not yet," she told herself. "You don't flip the table before you've stacked all the cards." Slowly, very slowly, she slid her hand under the pillow where she'd put her phone. She checked that the recording was saved, renamed the file quickly. Zola, bedroom plan, wedding night. She uploaded it to the cloud, to a hidden folder only she knew about, then emailed a copy to herself and to a backup account she kept for emergencies. Only when she was absolutely sure the audio was safe in more than one place did she let herself close her eyes. She didn't sleep so much as drift in and out of anxious half-dreams, snippets of Zola's voice mixing with her father's and Selah's, with the echo of Omari saying, "Baby, trust me," in 100 different ways. When she finally woke for real, pale morning light was filtering through the curtains. Omari wasn't in bed anymore. She heard the shower running in the bathroom, his off-key humming faint through the door. It was astounding how normal he sounded, as if the night before had been nothing but a regular end to a perfect day. Abini sat up slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over her. She had cried under the bed. She had shaken with rage on the floor. But now, in the cold clarity of morning, it all condensed into something else. Resolve. By the time Omari stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his hips, grinning at her like they were the stars of some romantic movie, she had her mask back on. "Morning, Mrs. Adeyemi," he said, leaning down to kiss her. She turned her face so his lips brushed her cheek instead of her mouth. He pulled back, eyebrows lifting. "Someone's shy," he teased. "You ran off on me last night. I came back and thought you had disappeared into thin air." "I was tired," she said simply. "Too many emotions. I crashed." He searched her face for a second, then shrugged. "Big day yesterday," he said. "It still feels surreal. We're like, really married." "Yeah," she murmured. "Surreal." He didn't notice the edge in her voice. "Mom said she might swing by later to bring us food," he said, grabbing his phone. "You know how she is. She thinks we'll starve if she doesn't supervise." "I'm sure she'll come," Abini said. Omari chuckled, completely missing the double meaning. While he got dressed, talking about their honeymoon plans and the condo like nothing at all was wrong, Abini nodded in the right places, filed away details, and mentally ticked off her to-do list. 9 a.m., call from Dad, confirming the notary appointment. 10 a.m., Selah arriving, legal pad in hand. Noon, meeting at the notary to transfer her father's shares and Aunt Clara's condo. After that, strategy. "You okay, baby?" Omari asked at one point, tying his tie in the mirror. "You're quiet." "Just tired," she repeated. "I'll go make coffee." In the kitchen on the ground floor of the estate, some of the wedding party were already staggering around in sweatpants, nursing hangovers and reminiscing about the dance floor. Abini smiled, accepted a few hugs, let people call her Mrs., and squeal. Her mother caught her by the elbow. "You look pale," Mama murmured in Yoruba. "Didn't sleep?" "I'll tell you later," Abini whispered back in the same language, her eyes glistening for just a moment. "Baba is coming at 10. Please make sure you're home then." Her mother studied her for a second, saw something in her daughter's eyes that made her nod without another question. "All right," she said softly. "We'll be there." By 11, Abini was sitting at her father's dining table in Buckhead, hair pulled back, face bare, a mug of black coffee cooling in front of her. Kamau paced back and forth, the notary documents spread out like battle plans. "I knew that boy was trouble," he muttered, from the first handshake. Too tight, too much eye contact, like he was sizing me up, not greeting me. And that mother of his, with her perfume that hits you before she does, and the way she looked down her nose at our furniture. "Daddy," Abini said gently, "if you start this, I told you so speech now, we'll still be here next week. Please, "The papers." He stopped, looking at her. The pain in his eyes when he saw his little girl like this, freshly married and already carrying the weight of betrayal, made his chest ache. He sat down heavily. "You're right," he said. "Business first, revenge later." "Justice," she corrected. He nodded. They signed where they had to, the notary stamping and witnessing as Kamau transferred 10% of his company shares into her name and formalized the deed of Aunt Clara's old apartment as her sole property. "In case things get messier than we expect," he said, "no one will be able to say you have nothing. Remember that." Abini's throat tightened. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. Selah arrived soon after, dropping her blazer on the back of a chair, eyes already scanning the recording transcript Abini had printed out. "Oh, this is gold," Selah breathed. "Your mother-in-law basically laid out the whole scam like a villain in a cheap movie. She admits the plan, the intention to deceive, the fabricated narrative about your background. If this goes to court, any judge with 2 working ears is going to see her as a manipulator." "What about Omari?" Abini asked. She said, "Omari and I have it all mapped out." She said he put up the money, that they have all the receipts. He can't claim he didn't know, right? Selah shook her head. "He can try," she said. "Men like him always try. It was all my mother's idea. I didn't really mean it. We never went through with the plan. But they've already moved. The condo's in your name. They're counting on you not fighting back. That recording proves premeditation. If they ever attempt to use that fake narrative in court, we'll bury them with this." Abini exhaled. "So, what do I do?" she asked. "Do I confront them now? Do I file for annulment? Do I play along and let them think they're winning?" Selah tapped a pen against the table. "Emotionally, I know you want to blow everything up today," she said. "But strategically? We need them to step into the trap on their own. Right now, they think you're naive. Let's use that." Kamau leaned forward. "I don't like the idea of my daughter staying with wolves," he said, "but I trust her instincts, and yours." He nodded at Selah. "What are you suggesting?" Selah smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I'm suggesting," she said, "that we let Zola and Omari reveal themselves. We give them rope. We watch what they do when they think she's still docile. Meanwhile, we secure every asset possible and build a file thick enough to choke a hippo." She turned to Abini. "Today you go back," she said. "You act normal, sweet, soft. The same girl they think they can play. You don't confront them, not yet, but you pay attention, you save messages, you record, if you can do it legally." "Georgia's a one-party consent state," Kamau cut in. "As long as she's part of the conversation, she can record." Selah snapped her fingers. "Perfect," she said. "Then you record anything suspicious. We'll decide when to drop the bomb." Abini nodded slowly. The thought of going back into that condo with Omari, of letting him touch her, talk to her like nothing was wrong, made her stomach churn. But the idea of them thinking she was still their little bird in a cage was even more intolerable. They wanted a docile, easy-to-manipulate wife. Instead, they were going to get a woman who had lawyers, a powerful father, and a digital file filled with their own words. By late afternoon, she and Omari were at the new condo again, cardboard boxes stacked against the walls, the smell of fresh paint in the air. Omari was in his element, opening cabinets, talking about where to put the TV, whether they should get a bigger couch. Abini nodded, mentally mapping exits, corners, sight lines instead of interior design. Around 6, there was a knock at the door. Omari grinned. "That'll be Mom," he said. "She said she was bringing stew. Act surprised, okay? She loves that." "Oh, I'm sure she does," Abini murmured. She flipped on her phone's voice recorder and slipped it into the pocket of her jeans, just as Omari opened the door. Zola swept in with 2 large containers, perfume first, then sharp eyes, scanning the apartment. "Well, well," she said. "So this is the little nest." "Hey, Mom," Omari said, kissing her cheek. Abini forced a pleasant smile. "Good evening, Mama Zola," she said. "You didn't have to bring anything." "Nonsense," Zola replied, handing the stew to Omari. "If I leave you two alone, you'll live on takeout and cereal." She walked around the living room, running a finger along the windowsill as if checking for dust, the queen inspecting a newly conquered territory. "So," she said casually, "did you two sign all the final documents? The condo is officially in your name now, right, Abini?" "Yes, ma'am," Abini said. "The deed is in my name. We got confirmation yesterday." "Good," Zola said. "Good. A woman should have something of her own." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course, in a marriage, what's his is yours, and what's yours is his. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Sharing. Abini tilted her head. "Absolutely," she said. "Sharing love, sharing responsibilities, sharing intentions." Zola barely registered the last word. Her gaze landed on a framed photo on the console table. The wedding picture delivered in a rush that morning by the photographer. It showed Omari and Abini under a floral arch, laughing, foreheads almost touching. "How beautiful," Zola said, though her tone was oddly flat. "Such a perfect couple." Omari beamed. "We are," he said, reaching for Abini's waist. She stepped just out of reach, pretending to adjust the frame. "Actually," she said, turning back to them, "since we're all here, I wanted to talk about something." Omari's smile faltered. "Now?" he asked. "Can it wait?" "Mom just got here." "It'll only take a minute," Abini said, her voice deceptively light. "I just want everything to be clear for our future." Zola narrowed her eyes a fraction. "What kind of clear?" she asked. Abini walked over to the coffee table, sat down, and gestured for them to sit too. They did, Omari looking vaguely confused, Zola suspicious. Abini folded her hands on her knees. "I know we're newlyweds," she began, "and maybe you both think I'm just a naive girl from the country who doesn't understand how things work." Zola's lashes fluttered, the only sign that the barb had landed. "But I do understand something," Abini continued. "I understand that trust is the only way a marriage survives, and I understand that lies always have a way of coming to light." Omari laughed nervously. "Babe, what are you talking about?" he asked. "We're not lying to you." Abini looked him straight in the eye. "Funny," she said. "That's exactly what I thought, until last night." The room stilled. "Last night?" Zola repeated. "What do you mean, last night? You were here, no?" Abini tilted her head. "Was I?" she asked softly. "Or was I somewhere else?" Omari swallowed. "Baby, you're scaring me," he said, his voice tight. "What is this about?" Abini reached into her pocket and wrapped her fingers around her phone. Suddenly, her heart was pounding again, like it had under that bed. But this time, she wasn't hiding. This time, she was the one about to drag monsters out from their shadows. "It's about what people say," she replied, "when they think I'm not there to hear it." She pulled the phone out, unlocked it with a swipe, and scrolled to the file she had so carefully renamed. Then she set it on the table between them, screen glowing. "I wanted to give you both a chance," she said quietly. "To be honest, to tell me the truth yourselves. But since you chose not to," she tapped the play button. "We'll let your own words do it for you." The condo went silent as the first crackling sounds came from the phone's tiny speaker. At first, it was just the scrape of the mattress springs, the distant hum of the estate's old heating system. Then Zola's voice filled the living room, rich and sharp, like a knife wrapped in velvet. "Yes, Shanice, I'm home now." "No, no way. The girl turned out to be very docile. Too much so, I'd say." Omari's smile died. His eyes snapped to the phone, confusion knitting his brows, then slowly, horror. Zola didn't move. She sat very still, back straight, hands folded over her handbag, but a tiny muscle in her jaw twitched. Abini didn't say a word. She just let the audio run. Omari says she's practically an orphan, a hovel in some rundown building out in Decatur. Now my Omari has leverage. The living room, freshly painted walls, sparkling stone countertops, brand new couch, suddenly felt as cold and foreign as a courtroom. Omari swallowed hard. "Turn that off," he said, a little too loudly. "Whatever that is, you're taking it out of—" Zola held up a hand. "Be quiet," she hissed. Her own voice continued mercilessly. "They'll live together for 6 months, a year at most. Then Omari starts saying they're not compatible. I'll say the daughter-in-law doesn't respect me, talks back, can't cook. They'll get an amicable separation, and the condo, we'll claim it in court. Omari put up the money. We have all the receipts saved. What can a girl from the country do against us? Omari and I have it all mapped out." Omari shot to his feet. "Mom, what the hell?" he shouted. "When did you— how?" Zola's face had gone stiff, her lips pale. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, ignoring her son, her cold eyes locked on Abini. "Were you spying on me?" Abini tilted her head slightly. "On my wedding night," she said quietly, "I hid under the bed because I wanted to prank my husband. I thought he'd come in, call my name, panic a little, then I'd jump out and we'd laugh. Romantic, stupid stuff." Her mouth twisted. "Instead, the person who walked in was you." She pointed at the phone. "And I'm very glad I started recording when I heard your heels in the hallway." The audio rolled on, unstoppable. "Don't worry, Shanice. Patience. I put up with my late husband for 30 years until he finally kicked the bucket. Now the house, the properties, and the accounts are mine. Let this one believe it, too. All the better. Bird in a cage." Abini calmly tapped pause. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. For a moment, the only sound was Omari's ragged breathing. "Mom," he said hoarsely, "tell her this is some kind of joke. You were venting. You were exaggerating, right?" Zola finally tore her gaze away from the phone and looked at her son. In that moment, she seemed to weigh her options, deny everything, twist the story, cry. She chose anger. "I don't have to explain myself to this girl," she snapped. "That recording is illegal, out of context. You don't know what I really meant." "Actually," Abini cut in, her voice icy smooth, "I do." She picked up the phone, opened a folder, and flicked her thumb across the screen. "Because that's not the only recording," she added. Zola's composure cracked for the first time. "What?" she breathed. "You kept talking," Abini said, "about your late husband, about how you let him think you were simple while you planned to own everything. You said I believed you thought I was some poor little orphan. You called me prey." She looked at Omari, her eyes suddenly blazing. "And then you called your son," she added, "and you told him exactly what you had said to Shanice." She scrolled, tapped another file. "And all of that," she said softly, "is here." Omari's face morphed from shock to horror to something uglier. "You were under the bed?" he said through gritted teeth. "Recording my mother in my room?" "Yes," Abini said simply. "Listening to the woman who hugged me at my bridal shower talk about how she was going to help you strip me of everything. Listening to you laugh on the phone and call me a bird in a cage." Zola pushed herself to her feet, clutching her handbag like a shield. "This proves nothing," she said. "If you take this to court, I'll say you edited it. I'll say you're unstable. You'll look like some scheming little—" "No," Abini interrupted, her tone still maddeningly calm. "You'll look exactly like what you are, a woman who thinks other people's children are tools, and your son will look like a man who happily helped you sharpen the knife." She turned fully to Omari then. Up until that moment, she had spoken as if the three of them were pieces on a board, moving around each other. Now she focused on him alone. "Tell me something," she said quietly. "At any point in this plan of yours, while you were signing forms, convincing me to put this place in my name, asking about my family, did you feel even a second of guilt?" Omari's mouth opened, but nothing came out. She waited. He swallowed. I never meant to go through with it," he said finally, words tumbling over each other. It was just talk. Mom likes to control everything. She plans for the worst. I wanted us to feel secure. I would never actually... He trailed off as Abini's expression didn't change. Secure? She repeated. You sleep at night planning which accusations will make a judge take my house away, and you call that security? He took a step toward her, hands out. Babe, listen, he pleaded. We're talking about hypotheticals. That's all. Insurance. We would never have really kicked you out. That's funny, she cut in, her voice suddenly sharper. Because you know who didn't see it as hypothetical? My father. When I called him last night and told him I needed protection, he put 10% of his company in my name this morning. She reached into a folder sitting on the side table and pulled out a set of documents, tossing them onto the coffee table. And Aunt Clara's condo, the one your mother called a hovel, that's in my name too now. Clean, clear, signed after the wedding, gifted, no strings. Zola's hand tightened on her handbag strap. Your father, she began, but Abini held up a hand. Oh, and Sela? She added, gesturing at the paperwork. My lawyer? She's fascinated by this little recording. She says judges love it when people admit to fraud and manipulation on tape. Makes their jobs easier. You told a lawyer? Omari said weakly. Of course she did, you fool, Zola snapped. Now she thinks she's clever, but she's still young, Omari. Courts are slow. Judges are men. They always believe the respectable mother-son pair over some emotional... Abini laughed. It wasn't a hysterical sound. It was low, almost disbelieving. Respectable? She repeated. Is that what you think this looks like? You blowing smoke out the window in a no-smoking hotel, plotting to call me dirty and lazy in front of a judge to steal something I paid for? Zola's nostrils flared. You, she scoffed. Paid? My son? Your son, Abini cut in, never even saw the receipts. I wired the down payment from my account. I signed the paperwork. I paid every inspection fee, every closing fee. Your son brought excitement and a Pinterest board. I brought money and a sane credit score. Omari flinched. Abini, he started, but she shook her head. Don't, she said. Don't baby me. Don't princess me. I want you to hear something very clearly now, without any recording. She straightened her spine, every inch of her radiating the cold determination that had first pushed her to call her father in the middle of the night. You thought you married a bird in a cage, she said, but I'm not the one trapped here anymore. You two are. Omari blinked. What does that even mean? He demanded. It means, she said, that every time you try to pull that we have all the receipts story out in court, this, she tapped the phone, comes with it. It means that if you ever try to claim my condo, my money, my work, we will walk into that courtroom with a neat little file and let your own words do the heavy lifting. She glanced at Zola. And it means, she added, that if you start spreading rumors about me in your precious social circles, about how I disrespected you, how I'm crazy, how I used your son, I will not respond with gossip. She smiled thinly. I will respond with this audio, emailed to every cousin, aunt, pastor, and business partner you have. For the first time, real fear flickered in Zola's eyes. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. Try me, Abini said. Omari scrubbed a hand over his face. Okay, he said. Okay, everyone calm down. We're all upset. Things were said. But this doesn't have to blow up. We can work it out. We can forget this plan. It was stupid. We'll just move forward like none of it ever. No, Abini said. Her voice was quiet, but the word landed like a stone in water, sending ripples through the room. Omari stared at her. What do you mean, no? He asked. I mean, she said slowly, as if explaining something to a child, this marriage is over. Not in 6 months. Not after your mother's little performance. Not when you've squeezed enough leverage out of me. She gestured around them. You ended it on our wedding night when you agreed I was a cage bird to be manipulated. You just didn't sign the paperwork yet." Omari's face twisted. "You can't just decide that," he shouted. "Marriage isn't something you walk away from because of one conversation." "One conversation," she echoed. "This wasn't a joke, Omari. This was a blueprint. You sat there and let your mother talk about creating a fake narrative to steal from me. You didn't correct her. You didn't say, 'No, that's wrong. I love her. I won't do that.' You said, 'Just remember what we talked about.'" She took a step closer, the air between them icy. "I might have chosen you," she said, "but I will not choose a life where I sleep next to someone who quietly plans for my destruction. I watched my mother stay with a man who chipped away at her self-worth for years, always hoping he'd change. I promised myself I would never be her." Her throat tightened, but she didn't stop. "So I'm keeping that promise," she finished, "starting today." Zola scoffed. "You're being dramatic," she said. "Do you know how stupid you will look? Leaving your husband right after the wedding because of a misunderstanding? People will say you were just waiting to get the condo in your name and run." "Let them talk," Abini replied. "The people whose opinions I care about, they know me, and they've already seen men like you and women like you more times than they can count." She picked up the folder of fresh legal documents and tucked them under her arm. "My lawyer will contact you," she told Omari. "We'll talk about annulment or divorce, whatever is cleanest. In the meantime, I suggest you stay with your mother. This condo is mine, legally, practically, morally. You are not welcome to use it as a staging ground for your next scam." "You can't kick me out of my own house," he protested, color rising in his cheeks. Her lips curved. "This was never your house," she said. "That was the part of your plan you got wrong. You thought because I don't brag, I don't know my rights. You married me thinking I was desperate to keep a man." She shook her head. "I'm not desperate," she said softly. "I'm done." She walked to the door, then paused and looked back one last time. Omari stood there, chest heaving, hands clenched, eyes furious and unbelieving. Zola sat rigid, lips pressed so tightly together they had gone white. "You know," Abini said, tilting her head, "if that prank had gone the way I planned, you would have walked into the room, pretended to be surprised, and I would have come out from under the bed laughing like an idiot." She smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "In a twisted way," she added, "I'm grateful it didn't." She opened the door. "Because at least now," she finished, "I know exactly who I married, and I don't have to stay." Then she stepped out into the hallway, closed the door behind her, and walked away from the condo that was hers, not as a prize in someone else's scheme, but as the first piece of a life where she would no longer be anyone's cage bird. Months later, when the annulment papers were finalized and the story of the girl who left her husband right after the wedding circled through Atlanta in half-true fragments, Abini would sometimes lie on her own bed in her own condo and remember that night under the mahogany frame. The dust, the torn veil, the sound of Zola's heels, the feeling of her heart shattering. And then she'd remember the moment she pressed record, the moment the joke turned into evidence, the moment the prank saved her life. On her wedding night, hiding under the bed, she'd learned the ugliest truth anyone can find on such a day, that the person you loved might be planning to hurt you more deeply than any stranger ever could. But she also learned something else. She wasn't powerless. She wasn't small. And when the time came to crawl out from under that bed, she hadn't come out as a frightened girl begging to be chosen. She'd come out as a woman who chose herself.